Hi, everybody. We are live on Facebook. So that in and of itself means it's a good day. The technology gods have aligned and here we are. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is such an important topic today. We're going to talk about food addiction. And when I say food addiction, I know that there's a connotation there that there's something to be ashamed of. And people will say, well, I'm not addicted to food. And so I get that. I understand. I, when I was really heavy, I would not have said I was addicted because I didn't really understand what that meant. To me, addiction only had to do with some kind of, really insane behavior or, drugs or alcohol. I really didn't, I hadn't thought it through. I hadn't thought about it. I just knew I was having trouble getting things under control. And I wouldn't have really put any language to it other than that. In hangry, when the word hangry became a thing, I was like, oh yes, that's it. I'm definitely hangry for sure. But food addiction is actually a thing. And if you've been listening to any of my talks ever, and if you've been following along on Facebook this week as I've done some posts, then you know that there's something called the bliss point. And the bliss point is the exact amount of salt, sugar, and fat that these big food companies put in a product to make it physically addictive. And they actually study it on people, which is perfectly legal. They've been doing this for years. And so what they do is I'm sure some of you have seen this. So they'll put something out there saying, we need this many people to try some products and we're going to pay you. And they can even do it for kids. They'll say, we need kids 6 to 8 years old to try this many products and tell us which is their favorite. And so they keep going through these until they find the one that has the exact amount of salt, sugar, and fat that reaches the bliss point that is the most addictive. That's also the reason why, like when I was growing up, there was Doritos. And now there's like something like Mountain Dew nuclear powered Doritos. Like Doritos aren't enough anymore. It's like they have to keep upping it because you get a little numb to the bliss point and then you have to have more. So that's the other thing that you see happening. Also, you need to have more in quantity as well. So a really funny example is when the kids were teenagers, I had an Astro van, but the Astro van was old. We bought it used. And because I was always carting lots of kids around. And I remember ordering a super-sized Diet Coke and I had nowhere to put it because all of the cup holders were too small. So they had not even accounted for the fact that anyone would have the audacity to drink that amount of soda when they built this vehicle. And so I couldn't, I had to get a large. It was so sad. So that's, this is what happens is over time, you guys, my hair is doing something super crazy today. What is happening over time is that not only are we consuming more and more artificial flavoring through these bliss points, but we are consuming more in quantity as well. And so when somebody like me comes along and starts talking to you about vegetables, it sounds gross. And so and I've actually one time, maybe twice in all the years I've been doing this, I had somebody actually like call me crying saying my food has no flavor. And I'm like, well, number one, people don't know how to season things usually. So that's something that we teach you in the program. But also your your taste buds are so used to this artificial flavor that real flavors are just seem like nothing to you. Now, the good news is your taste buds, this is really cool. So your taste buds actually turn over every 6 days. So just like everything else in your body, it's constantly renewing. So it only takes a couple of weeks for you to really start. That's when I tell people that, you start craving something like steamed broccoli, they're like, really, no, that's not going to happen. But if you really commit to the program, it does happen. And that's why people fail though, because they don't really commit. They're addicted to the foods. And so when they try any kind of diet, they will fail because they're not really committing to it 100%. And then they go back to their trigger foods, which are artificially flavored with this bliss point, and then they have trouble getting back on. So hopefully that makes sense to you. We're going to go into this in depth today and talk about the emotional part behind it as well. So I wanted to ask, so I'm here, I usually introduce myself when I start, but I was distracted by the fact that we actually went live on Facebook. We've been having a crazy technology week here. So I'm Lori DePietro, stand-in for those who don't know me, and these are the success coaches in my program, Joanne and Lori, who we call LT. So ladies, so both of you have had a lot of success in this area, but that's recent. So what I wanted to ask you is how do you personally define food addiction, and how did it feel for you in your life and in your body and in your mind?
Go ahead, LT.
Yeah. Okay, I would define it as something that you cannot stop at one serving or one portion or whatever is listed on the back of whatever that you're eating. You consume the whole bag, the whole box, and then you're thinking about it, how you're going to get some more. You're planning your trip to the grocery store and what you're going to get this time. You're hiding it. Maybe you're saying I'm buying it for the kids, but guess what? The kids never saw it because you've got your little place for it. You're going through drive-throughs, the same regular thing all the time. It's your go-to, it's your fallback, it's your mindless thinking, just wanting something. And if you're going more than 3 or 4 times a week to a drive-through, you're some kind of been addicted to that drive-through and that order that you've gotten. And mine was, it didn't matter if it were salt or sweet or sugary. I had a whole host of characters lined up that I seem to like them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people gravitate more towards one or the other. Like me, it was more sweets for sure.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me from eating an entire large bag of salt and vinegar potato chips either.
Right. Right.
And also going through the drive-through all the time. So what about you, Joanne? Would you add anything to that?
As far as what I would define food addiction as,
or how it felt for you?
You know, in the moment, I didn't know it was happening. Really, like you said, I would never in a million years have associated myself with being an addict of any type, because I worked really hard because of my family history to not have addiction be part of my life. So I remember our first conversation when you mentioned something, you're like, oh yeah, food addiction is a real problem, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, who are you calling a food addict? Like, I'm not a food addict. What are you talking about? So I didn't even recognize that it was a thing. But once you put that thought in my head, I was like, oh my God, she's right. Because I did the same thing, going through the drive-through, having my regular order. I knew what it was that I was going to get. And almost feeling like I couldn't get other things done until I had fulfilled that. You know, I had to stop at the Starbucks to get the mocha before I could go home and do whatever. Or, you know, I couldn't accomplish a different thing until I got that in my system somehow. And I mean, if that's not the definition of addiction, it really is.
Right, it's dependency.
I was dependent on either tasting it or feeling what it made me feel like. I'm not even sure what it was that made it happen, but it was that I was relying on that to set the rest of my day.
Right. So what specifically for you guys, what foods or beverages was it for you guys?
Well, you know, I had my Diet Coke, got up drinking it, drank it all during the day, drank it with every meal, drank it at night. Loved Coke. Oh gosh, how many did I drink in a day? Probably maybe a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Because I would nurse it. It's not like I would drink the whole thing at one time, but once you counted it all during the day, and wasn't drinking water at all. It was, that was my beverage. And then of course that was the main hold, but I also, had a thing for Little Debbie's. I normally would eat more than one. I had a thing for Cheez-Its, for Chex Mix, Skittles. Sometimes I would eat Skittles till where my jaw would be so sore you couldn't even chew anymore. I mean, I did that. And then I remember going through a Starburst phase and then it was so annoying to have to unwrap every one. And then they started making Starbucks minis that were unwrapped.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that was just even better. So
Right.
then I went through that. And, there wasn't one single time where I would go where there was a cash register, whether it was a gas station, a pharmacy, or the grocery store. And that candy aisle is right there, or that candy counter and the little Coke thing. Every single time I got something.
Right.
Every time.
They make it easy. That's the point.
Mhm.
This isn't just a physical condition addiction. It is actually, we are addicted to the convenience of all of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was actually recently talking to someone who said, I feel like crap all the time. I mean, I talk to people who say this regularly. I feel like crap all the time. I've gained this much weight. I'm so depressed. Can I do this without doing any grocery shopping, changing, any meal prep, any cooking? And I'm just like, well, I can make it easy for you, but that's not realistic.
Mhm.
But it's because what's happened is we have become addicted to the convenience. And so what's happening is we're building up our life around that convenience. So as soon as that convenience goes away, we're like, well, now something else has to give because I don't have any time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're too busy. And that's the other thing we're addicted to, which is what you're seeing with COVID, is people being addicted to busyness. And now that they don't have that busyness,
Right.
they've become even more addicted to food and even more addicted to alcohol and other things.
Yeah.
And what's so frustrating is that a lot of these addicting foods that we're talking about are very cheap.
Oh,
A
right.
$5 pizza, some candy, the Little Debbie's. I mean, those are not very expensive in the scheme of
I
things.
hear
And
that
that's what's
constantly,
frustrating.
too. That's what I hear constantly too, is
Yeah.
it's because of government subsidies. So
Right.
if you're not aware of how government subsidy works, what they do, the government invests in certain industries. And when they do that, they expect a payback. So they get let me back up. They invest our tax dollars in certain industries, and then they get a cut of the profits. So years ago, like Domino's is a really good example. Domino's pizza was sort of around when I was younger, and then you went through years where, at least here in Ohio, you never heard about it. And then they made this huge resurgence. And the thing that they did is they did the stuffed crust pizza with the cheese.
Mhm.
And I remember like thinking, my God, like that's just crazy. Like, why, you've already got all this cheese on the pizza. Like now you're going to stuff it in the crust. Like, who thinks of this stuff? But what that is a government subsidy. So what happened was, and you can look this up, the government actually partnered with Domino's to promote cheese, to promote dairy. And so they're like, we want you to come up with something new so that we can promote this, and we're going to invest in you. And so Domino's has since had a huge resurgence. And so they've invested in other, like they partnered with Wendy's for the Baconator. So it's, these are the things that our government does, and they get a cut at your child's school. All of those got milk posters, all of that stuff, that's provided by the government because they get a cut every single time your child buys a carton of milk. Now tell me that that's not affecting our food pyramid and the food plate.
Yes.
Because at a lot of schools, it's absolutely required that you have a milk, whether you drink it or not. They'll be like, you need to take this whether you drink it or not.
Right. Chocolate or white milk, both,
right.
Either one. Right.
Oh, they don't care. They don't care. So government subsidies are pushing these foods as well. And so that's why they're so convenient. That's why you don't see an advertisement for sweet potatoes or broccoli, but you see advertisement for cheese and pork and, you know, all of these things that they are subsidizing. Subsidies are about 60% meat and dairy, about 15% alcohol, about 50, I think it's, I'm adding up in my head. And then the rest is like the grains, and only 2% is fruits or vegetables. So that's why they're not pushing it. So what about you, Joanne? And also, Lori, I can relate. I had a problem with lemon heads. Lemon heads, I would like eat them until the inside of my mouth was raw.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and also those lifesaver mints, the ones that were they're
The
like yes.
Yeah.
Not the peppermints, they're like wintergreen or something.
Wintergreen lifesavers. Yeah.
And it's so funny because I thought I was the only one who had a problem with those, and then one day somebody popped up and was like, I have a huge problem with these. I ate them until my teeth started breaking off.
Right.
Because I got to the point where I needed a bag of those every other day.
I was the butter rum lifesavers. I would go through rolls of those because it tastes kind of caramelly or butterscotchy. And see, I like anything caramel. I would have eaten dog food if it had caramel on it. I love anything caramel. I'm going to eat.
I feel that. I would definitely chow down on some Werther's originals. And then also this coming up on this time of year, the candy, the Reese's, like I would buy bags of candy to put in the kids' stockings, and then I would eat it all and have to go.
Sure, because it's out early. Yeah, you go through several cycles of buying. And Christmas candy is out right now.
Oh, I know.
Stores.
It starts in October because they're, gearing up for Halloween, and then it never stops after that.
And then it will be Valentine's. And then it will be Easter.
Great. As soon as you get a recovery going, it comes out again. So that's the thing is completely relentless. And, but yeah, so also for me, it was, I had a big problem with Big Macs. I loved the #1, and I would usually get it supersized because I needed a mound of fries. But with Diet Coke, of course, because you can't have too much sugar.
That's right.
And then, the donuts. I had a big problem with the donuts. And ice cream at Dairy Queen. So but I would have told you what's so bizarre about all this is that if you would have asked me at the time, I would have said my diet's not that bad because I occasionally had a salad. Right? Because we're not realistic. So sorry. All right. So Joanne, tell us what.
I thought I was going to get out of this and not have to share my secrets. No, I'm a candy freak. That was my big thing, was the boxes of movie candy. And, I grew up loving Halloween. We would take our pillowcase out and fill it and go home, dump it and go back out and fill it again. So I loved candy. And every weekend we would go to Walgreens, raid the candy aisle. And I mean, not like when I was a teenager, like last year, before I started the program, we would stock up and go pick several each of the boxes of movie candy, because you had to have the fruity kind, and then you needed a little bit of a chocolate kind. And we would literally sit on the couch on Sundays and watch whatever show we were binging and just eat the candy. Until I did break a tooth on an everlasting gobstopper. I broke a tooth because I tried to chew it. And now ever since then, and that has been probably a 5-year dilemma that I have been dealing with one tooth. And I had that oral surgery in March, still trying to fix that one tooth that I damaged on candy because I couldn't stop eating the candy.
Right.
The other thing was the drive-through. And I got into, when you get in that mode of the fast food is making you feel so crappy that you don't have the energy to go home and fix something, and it's just like that. You think it's making you feel better because you got that task out of the way, but then you feel like worse crap and worse. And
okay, I know that there are some people here who can relate to this. I would go buy healthy food at the store and be so exhausted from going to the store. I would go to the drive-through on the way home.
I did that.
I'll just make this tomorrow because I can't right now.
Yeah. The Wendy's is right next door to my grocery store. Wendy's was my vice.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about any fast food. I would get not only what the meal was, but if they had something like Wendy's, of course, has the cookies and the Frosties. I got that too.
Oh, yeah.
McDonald's has the apple pie and the cookies or the caramel sundae. I would get that too. You know,
Yep.
it never just became the meal. It became something else
Right.
with it
Yeah.
every time.
And I know with you, Joanne, you said that it also became like, this is the activity I do with my kids.
Yeah,
Like,
we did. We planned a lot of activities around food. It just became the center point of everything we
food.
did.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, let's go to this place. You know, we had a pizza place that we would go, and they have a menu item there that is really, really good, but not good for you. And we were doing that a lot, and it was just like, that's our Friday night activity. You know, it was just fried pizza dough with Parmesan cheese all over it, and they call them beer nuggets, and they're delicious. But there's no nutrition in them at all. It's just fried dough. But that became like the centerpiece of our weekend. You know, like, just go there, get these things, and I made everybody happy. It got me off the hook for having to cook dinner, and nobody had any nutrition in their body at all following that activity. And even just, you know, going out to go get ice cream and go, because my husband is a big child and he still likes doing that stuff too. So, you know, it becomes the focal point. Instead of doing actual activities, we just go eat and revolve around that constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly says, same here with candy. My family did the same thing with movie candy. And Christine is also screaming yes to all of this. So that's, you know, that is an important point, is that this is it, because I do talk to so many women about this, is one of their first things is, oh, but what am I going to do about my family? Like, I really want to get healthy, but what am I going to do about my family? Because they're all addicted to this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, well, then if I do that, then I have to do 2 separate meals because they are going to want this stuff and I'm going to be wanting this over here.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also becomes this sort of culture that you've set up in your family around unhealthy food. And so not only is it changing your life, but it seems overwhelming because you now have to, or you feel like you have to change the culture in your family. And the thing is about kids is they're just as addicted to this stuff as we are. That's why they throw such a fit when you try to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just because they're being brats, which, you know, maybe they are. I've certainly experienced that with my family. But at the same time, they are addicted and they get hangry just like we do.
Yeah.
And they want their fix just like we do. And we are setting them up for a lifetime of problems. They are now saying with, you know, their studies that if a child is obese by the time they're 10 or overweight by the time they're 10, their chances of being an obese adult are 70%.
Yeah. Right. And here our society sets up things like this for rewards. I know at our Krispy Kreme here, every A you get on the report card, you bring the report card in, you get a donut for every A.
They're also doing a thing for voters, like you get a free donut for voting. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, I'd be great for Krispy Kreme, I guess, but like, you know, I mean, or you would get, if you get, my son would get these things for a free Frosty. If he got certain grades, like at school, they would give you a certificate for a free Frosty. I mean, so yeah, it's all revolves around food. And unfortunately, what it's doing is it is setting your children up for food addiction, which is setting them up for obesity, which is setting them up to be part of the diet industry for the rest of their life, which is setting them up to be part of the medical industry for the rest of your life. This is how it's set up. If it feels like a conspiracy, y'all, because it is. Mm-hmm. That's what it is designed to do. April says ditching the Oreos is literally the hardest thing. So right, you can't, there's trigger foods. Yeah. That's the other thing is like, when people say, oh, there are no bad foods, I want to strangle someone because number one, yes, there are bad foods. There are foods that are really bad for you and make you feel like shit and ruin your health. So yes, there are bad foods.
Right.
But also there are trigger foods. There are
Yes.
foods that you cannot stop once you start because of how addictive they are. And for me, like I said, that was salt and vinegar chips. To this day, I don't keep those in the house. If my son likes them, and we'll buy an individual bag for him
Right.
if he wants them, but I'm not buying the big bag because he's not eating the whole bag. And then I will sneak in there and get them because I know myself. I'm just realistic about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you were saying about how the junk food is almost becoming another junk food in and of itself. And Oreo is a prime example because they changed the flavors with the season. So now you can get the candy corn Oreos, or you're going to get the holiday peppermint Oreos, or
Right?
you know how they changed the cream. So it's being changed. You know, like Pop-Tarts is a junk food, but now you can get a s'mores Pop-Tart.
Right.
You know, there's already bad cereals. Now you can have a candy. I mean, a cookie.
Oh,
cereal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just junk food becoming a junk food.
Reese's cup. Reese's has a cereal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
I know. A junk food imitating a junk food. I know it.
Do people actually think there's some kind of nutritive content to this? Like,
I know.
no, this is straight sugar for breakfast. That's
It's
all.
crazy. And I think we're also in this age with this Snapchat and the Instagram that these kids love because it's picture worthy. We had talked about before about Starbucks and their unicorn drink.
The unicorn
Oh.
Because you can
cappuccino.
take the picture. Listen, I live near
That's
the beach.
directly
here.
for kids. That is marketed directly
Yes.
to your children, people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I live near the beach here, and there's this place here at the beach, and it blows my mind. The first time we went to it was several years ago, and the line was out the door. And it's a milkshake in a mason jar that they then put scoops of ice cream in. So it's a milkshake float. And then, like a lemon wedge, they put a piece of cheesecake as a lemon wedge or a cupcake on the side.
Oh
This
my
thing
God.
is dripping with chocolate or caramel or whatever you want, but it makes a pretty picture.
It's also dripping with cholesterol.
People are lining out the door. We're lining out the door
God.
to get it.
Well, it's like the heart attack grill. Have you guys heard of that in New York? People have actually had heart attacks there. They actually have prizes for who can eat the most.
Mm-hmm.
People are commenting like crazy. So I'm hearing pretzels and cheddar cheese.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got addicted.
Pretzels.
Aurora, I got addicted to, because I thought I tricked myself into saying that goldfish were better, which if you look at them, they're not. If you actually look at the information, they are not. But I got addicted to just massive amounts of goldfish, and then I would eat them with grapes. And so that was like, oh, this is a healthy snack, except I would eat an entire bag of goldfish in one sitting. April says, love the everything in moderation idea. That's bullshit. One Oreo leads to an entire sleep, right?
A sleeve, yes.
When people say, when people say everything in moderation, I think this is spoken by a person who has no idea what they're talking about. They've never suffered with food addiction. They've never been overweight.
That's
or
right.
they're just in denial because you just can't, that's not a thing. Hillary says the medical industry rewards with food. I would love a different reward. Right. Same thing with teachers, so it's like, and my daughter's a vet tech, and she's like, the way that they reward their staff is with pizza and cake and all of this stuff. It's like, do you guys not realize that you're paying part of their insurance policy? Like you're making more unhealthy employees. And so the employees actually have been all gaining weight, and they went to the management. They're like, can we have something different? Like, and they said no. They just, because it's cheap. They don't want to actually reward you. They want you to think you're being rewarded. And so it's all just a big racket. Oh my gosh, so many comments. Oh my God, I have suffered with 2 strokes, and I am now realizing by listening to your conversation that I am a food addict. This is so very sad because I really want to come off this insulin, but I'm having a very tough time. Right. So here's another, I got to back up and say this. So when we have these talks, you guys, for everybody who's listening, the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour, I come up with some general framework for what we're doing. And then I really sit down and think about, the talking points I want to talk to you. I didn't do that with this because I could talk about this all day.
Right. We've lived it, done it.
This is some absolute, evil crap that our society is wrapped up in. And that is when I told you guys earlier in the week, like my grandma would be like, she would come into your room, you're cutting up. We were always cutting up. My grandma would come in and she'd be like, no, I've about had it. And then we were like, oh God. That's the way I feel though. Like
Yeah.
I am like, it's not even a screaming mad anymore. It's like a quiet fury. Like I am just like, are you kidding me? Because the more I learn about this and the more I talk to women who are wrapped up in this, the sadder and more angry that I get about it on all of our behalves. What I was going to say about that is I talked to a woman recently who she was working with somebody else but she wasn't losing weight. It was for her diabetes. And so she also wanted to lose weight. And we talked about a plant-based diet and how there's all kinds of evidence, clinical evidence that it can actually reverse diabetes. I've actually seen that happen in my family. And so, but she was like, I don't think I could give up my meat, and I don't think I can give up this. And I'm like, but she has advanced type 2 diabetes. And so we're talking about, are you willing to trade a body part at this point? Because you're starting to have neuropathy, you know, this can lead to blindness. The meds are not going to keep that from happening. They're just going to keep you from going into shock. So, but the thing that made me the maddest about it was that she was working with someone who was treating her diabetes with supplements and essential oils. I mean, there's no expletive that I could say right now that could accurately sum up how I feel about that kind of predatory crap.
Yeah.
That is not going to help you. That is not going to help you. But here's the thing, that's what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear that that's how she could be treated. She wanted to hear, I don't have to give up the way that I'm eating because I am addicted to these foods. And so somebody comes along and says, oh, you don't have to do that. Let's take these oils and do these supplements. I'm like, and I asked her, are you seeing any difference in your A1C? Well, no, not really. So we're going to do some more tests to find out what the problem is. The problem is what you're eating. So that's the thing is it's, you know, not only do we have these issues, but you have so many people out there taking advantage and telling you what you want to hear.
And being, like you said, the word predatory, it's so evident to me now that it wasn't before because I didn't associate myself with being a food addict. But now that I'm off of that whole cycle and I see it does the same thing to me. It makes me just livid when I see these predatory things that these marketers do. And a really good example that really just, oh my God, I wanted to scream the other night. And I took a picture, I was going to send it to you because I could not believe my eyes. So we're in the grocery store. It was late at night and we go there because then it's not crowded. So we don't have to be around people. So we were in the grocery store. It was late at night. We had eaten dinner. We did not need more food. We get to that checkout aisle and my husband goes, look at those Tic Tacs. I really want those Tic Tacs. And I said, no, you're not getting the Tic Tacs. And then he's like, oh, but look at that, you know, Kit Kat or whatever it was. I was like, you're not getting the Kit Kat. And I was like, it's 10 o'clock at night. We don't need that. You know, you don't need it anyway. But the thing that really, really just dug into me, the candy aisle or the candy that's right at the checkout now is backlit. They have installed lights underneath, in between, you know, because the boxes are kind of stadium, like stadium seating. They have installed row lighting underneath each level. So the candy is literally like, you know, like here I am, eat me and, you know, be happy. And it was actually, when I saw it happening to him, I recognized like, it's working exactly what they wanted to happen. I'm seeing it unravel because he was honestly getting beside himself. Like, I gotta pick something. I have to, like, it's screaming at me. And I thought, no, because now I'm really angry that they even did that, because how many people walk through here and they can't say no to that? They just can't, because
they don't have
in your face.
They don't have Joanne beside them going, are you kidding me right now?
No, I will slap it out of your hand. But
That's
it
right.
made me really angry that
It
now
is.
it's
And
like,
the little end caps and the little displays that are always in the center of the aisle or right at the beginning. And it's always the bad stuff.
Well,
You know,
it
right
is,
now
and it's-
at my grocery store, it's the Twinkies that look like Halloween, and it's the Hostess Ho-Ho cakes that have the Halloween colors on. I mean, you have to move your cart around it to get in the store.
right.
well, and the thing is about that display you're talking about too, Joanne, is that it's lower. It's at kid level.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
it's
thing.
an impulse buy. It's at the very end. They put it, I mean, for years, that's where it's always been.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It used to be just packs of gum. And then now it's like packs of gum, bags of chips, Slim Jims,
Right.
all the bad
And
stuff
all
that
of
you
it.
want right at the end of your shopping trip. And now they've gone and it's somebody's job out there to have thought up, oh, let's put lights on it. And now
Yeah,
they
how can
can't
we
miss
take
it.
this to the next level?
Yeah, it's just, it makes me so angry.
So Angel says, my workplace would have weight loss challenges and offer reimbursement for gym membership, but every Friday they would bring in donuts, cookies, and pastries, right?
Mm.
That's the thing that's so crazy about this, is that I hear that all of the time.
Mhm.
It's bizarre.
Right. And how many nurses do we work with that they say that this is the norm at the nurse station? People
Yeah.
bring in the junk. We hear it so many times.
I know. It
Their
really,
lunch, yeah, their donuts, their cupcakes, their cookies. It's all the time, all the time.
right. And I hear the same thing. I mean, that's the medical industry, which is really unfortunate. Is that sometimes, they're the most unhealthy because of the schedule that they work and all the stuff that is available to them. April says, my husband truly believes that Slim Jims are good for you. Try to convince him they aren't. Drives me nuts. I have a vegan jerky for you, April. That is amazing. So I will send you a link to that. But right, so the marketing that we are kind of not even, most of us are not even really aware of. And you always are also seeing those types of things late at night. And what it would do to me because I was constantly seeing, advertisements for food, I'm watching TV and this is coming on at 10, 11 o'clock or whatever, is I would want it the next day. Like, I'm not going to go out right now, but the next day I would remember that I saw that KFC commercial or whatever it was and be like, oh, I want to try that. They know what they're doing. This is,
Right.
and that they count on the fact that we're not paying attention and we aren't.
We're not,
Look at all the
everybody's in
scented
denial.
candles. This is what I was getting me the other day. Look at all the scented candles out there that have some sort of a food tie-in to it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know what candle I'm burning now? Cucumber and sea salt.
There you go.
And I love it. And pineapple cilantro. I said, you know what? I'm not going to get you little toasted cinnamon buns over here. I'm going to get my cucumber and sea salt.
That's the last thing we need, is for our candles to remind us of what we need to be eating.
Right.
Let me see. Please, everybody wants the jerky link. Okay. It's called Louisville. You guys can look it up on Amazon. Louisville vegan jerky. It's freaking delicious. They have a ton of different flavors and it has the texture of jerky and it is made from non-GMO soy. So they're delicious. There's other kinds out there that I've tried, but that one's my favorite. And yeah, so that's what I would, even my son likes it and he likes jerky. My son will eat and they come in bags. So look it up. Now working from home, my company sends us cookies. We are thinking of you. You can't get away from, do you guys remember this on Seinfeld? I know I say this all the time, but where she couldn't get away from the cakes. So Elaine would go into work and they would have a cake there every day. And it would either be because somebody had been, sick the day before and they wanted them to get better, or it was an engagement party or a new baby, or they just every day they had some kind of event. And so she's talking to Jerry and Kramer and whatever. And she's saying, I can't, I've got to take a day off. I can't do it with these cakes. And she comes back the next day and they all walk up to her with the cake and start singing, we want you to get well. We're so glad you're well. Like, that's what it's like.
It is.
Right.
And that's the thing is, that's probably a 20-year-old episode. I don't even know what year that would have been, but that's how long we've been. It's not getting better.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting worse. Now they are sending us a dozen cupcakes for Christmas since there's no Christmas party. I just don't even have any information to share about that. I don't even know what to say. But okay, so here's, what do you think? I mean, when we've kind of been talking about this, but what do you guys think the emotional triggers are involved in you reaching for these foods that you're addicted to? Now, we've already established that we don't really need a trigger because they are in themselves triggers. But what do you think was going on in your life that was making you more apt to take part?
I would say that I would eat when I was happy, when I was sad, but I noticed I ate the most when I was frustrated. When I was angry and felt out of control and felt like something is spinning and I cannot gain control of it. So I would really eat the most then. I also ate a lot when I was lonely. And I did a lot of eating. Well, I did most all my eating was in private. You know, I wouldn't go around and eat bags of stuff in front of people. I did this alone in my home. And normally and you know what makes you, it makes you even more mad. It makes you even more sad. It makes you even more lonely, because now we're going to compound the guilt and beating ourselves up. And why can't I do this? And I have no willpower, and I'm never going to be able to be this way. I'm never going to do what I want to do. I'm never going to be the size I want to be. I'm always going to be this big weight. I mean, I told myself this over and over. All the time.
Janet says she eats when she's overwhelmed. April said boredom.
Boredom.
I would eat in my car. I did a lot of eating in the car. When you got a whole bunch of kids in the house and stuff, it's like, it's so easy to just binge in your car, which is.
And sometimes you just want to eat that hot meal, because I don't know about anybody else, but when you have young kids, sometimes you just don't even get to eat the meal while it's still hot. So sometimes when my kids were really little, I would just go through a drive-through just so I could eat something without somebody hanging off of me going, what about me? What about me? I just want to eat in peace. So I think the stress of kids really compounded mine. And even as far back as to when they were, well, because I have twins. And so that was really overwhelming. Especially when they were infants, and my husband worked insane amount of hours back then. And he would be literally gone from morning until, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And so that's, for a baby, that's their whole day. They get up and they're back in bed by 6 p.m. But during the day, they would have their nap time, and I'm home alone, and here they would both start to stir in their cribs, because I had them on a really good schedule. But I could hear them upstairs starting to stir. One of them would start to, cry a little bit when they would wake up because they would be hungry. And I literally had a bag of chocolate chips, semi-sweet chocolate, up in the baking cupboard. And before I would walk upstairs to go get them, I would get a handful of chips, put it in my mouth, of chocolate chips, put it in my mouth, and just, it would do something to me. It would calm me down. And I would say, okay, I had my chocolate, I can go up and deal with them. And I'd walk up to their room, and then by then they were full blown crying. And I think it was just that trigger of being so overwhelmed that I felt like that little rush of sugar or chocolate or whatever it was, but it would help me through that moment. But then over time, every time they cried, I was like Pavlov's dog, you ring the bell, I would eat chocolate. And that lasted forever. And I mean, even until I joined the program, when they would start yelling, I would just feel that like, I gotta shove candy in my mouth. It was something that just would not go away.
And then it numbs you.
Well, I think it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done, the studies that they've done have shown that, it's the endorphins. It makes certain parts of your brain light up, very much like drugs. So the things that they've shown that are very, the most addictive, and they've actually, one of the most addictive drugs apparently is heroin. And what they've shown is that both sugar and dairy will light your brain up similarly.
Mhm.
to heroin. And that's why they are so addictive. That's why people
Right.
are like, I can't get rid of the cheese. I can't stop with the cheese,
Mhm.
or the ice cream,
Mhm.
or the sugar. Like this is how addicted your body gets to these things. And it does create a different state of mind, even temporarily. The problem is it ruins your life in the process
Yeah.
and ruins your health. So how has your, okay, so when did your perspective change on this when you started the program? So both of you have talked about where you were, and we have initial conversations when you guys come into the program, and I'm sure your perspective didn't change right then. So when did this hit home for you?
Mine was right away within 2 weeks because I was feeling so much better and some of my symptoms that I was suffering with were being alleviated. And I just was not craving something like that anymore. And I was just drinking tons and tons of water. Now, the first couple of days, because I was such a Diet Coke person, I did have a dull headache. And I
Mhm.
did feel a little sluggish, but I'd expected that. And you told me to look for that. And then
Right.
after that couple of days, that really went away. And what I did was I immersed myself in this program and watching your videos and reading everything that I could. And it all just said, this is what makes sense. This is what, and so I became infuriated with things that I had done like that and time that I had robbed of myself. And it just spurred me on to want to learn more and do better because I really jumped in with both feet. So
Yeah.
I would say that mine happened fairly quickly. And that took me by surprise. As I've told you, I did not think it would happen that quickly, but it did.
Right.
Mhm. And I think for me, I don't think my addiction to food I mean, in the first week when we did the juice cleanse, I think it broke my cravings. But I think what for me really was the turnaround was doing all the mindset work and coming to terms with, yes, I am addicted to food. And I never wanted to admit that. And at first I didn't even think it was a thing because like you said, you associate addiction with people doing outrageous behaviors. And like you just mentioned, heroin. My dad was a heroin addict. So, and an alcoholic and every other drug you can imagine. My grandparents, they were alcoholics. So this chain of addiction, they teach you in health class that it can take one drink, it can take using one drug, and that switch flips in your brain. So I have made my life to stay far away from that stuff, but I didn't realize I was doing it with food. And it was very easy for me to become addicted. So I think for me, the point was the mindset work that we did and really unpacking all of that stuff and going, yeah, you do this. You actually do. And you need to look at it and acknowledge it for what it is. And then like you said, once you know, and once you recognize something, you can't not know that anymore. And
Right.
you have to face it. And if you face it and you push through it and deal with it, you can come out on the other side and now you're in the grocery store going, put that candy down. They're just trying to make you addicted to it.
Right.
And I think also this program had the ton of support and encouragement. And I think that knowing that I had somebody lifting me up in that and somebody that I could turn to. I love this quote by Zig Ziglar. I posted it this week. It says, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. So that's why we recommend it daily.
Right.
Mhm.
You
Right.
stay in it. You stay in that frame of
Mhm.
being motivated and encouraged. You create a world around it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, I have stuff hanging all over my house that inspires me and motivates me. I immerse myself in it because what's the alternative? What are you
Mhm.
going to immerse yourself in otherwise?
Mhm.
So you might as well make the choices. You have choices. And for those who don't know my program, the cleanse at the beginning is 5 days and it's not fasting and there's no pills or anything like that. It's just a combination of fresh juices and good food, but it does break your physical addiction. But
Mhm.
then we work on with the mindset work, there's still the emotional part behind this
Mm-hmm.
that is making you turn to certain coping mechanisms. And so that's what we work on with the mindset work. Angel says, same as Joanne, I would buy a package of Reese's cups during our financial closing at work, and I would eat the whole damn package because I was stressed. And then, yeah, we get in a habit of this. Sherry says, my stress eating triggers are feeling disregarded, sad, or angry, or overwhelmed. And I remember feeling like, OMG, I'm so upset right now. I just need to comfort myself quickly since I don't really have time or strength to do anything else. So I would grab a cupcake or a bowl of pasta or whatever. Kelly says, I crave sweets after meals. Aurora says that she finished phase 1 yesterday and is feeling great and not craving junk so far. So Aurora is doing my program. So yeah, it's, there's 2 parts to this. And the first part is the physical addiction. That's the thing that's making you hangry. The thing where you're just like, if I don't get this right now, heads are going to roll. Yeah. But then there's like, which it was totally true. Like people have been on the receiving end of my hanger. It's not cute.
Yeah,
it is not.
Me too.
It's not a good look. No.
Not a cute look at all. No. My husband, that actually happened to me one time because we were, our flights had been delayed when we went on our honeymoon and we got stuck in Vegas, and it was this whole thing, and we were driving around looking for some place to eat, and I didn't want to eat at any place crappy. And so, but every place there, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Vegas, everything is a one way. And so we saw the Cheesecake Factory. I'm like, I can get a salad there, but we could not get there no matter what we did. And I started losing it. He's like, I've never been here before. I don't know how to get there. And so it was the whole thing. If anyone's ever been on the receiving end of my hanger, then I apologize. But it is 2 parts. It's the physical part, and then the realizing that you have developed bad coping mechanisms, and that you've built your life in such a way that it requires bad coping mechanisms. And so that's what needs to work on, to be worked on also. So how do you both feel that your emotions and thought processes have changed? So what are your coping mechanisms like now?
Mine is activity, doing a lot more activity because I want to, and I feel like it, and I like it, and I like how it makes me feel up here. Meditation. I read a lot. I study this a lot. I've watched every video that you've ever done. I'm learning new things about it. And that's what I'm surrounding myself with that. I'm staying in our group a lot. I love reading the positive things that people, it's like I'm setting myself up for positivity. I'm not going down a negative trail because it's a choice. I don't have to watch that show. I don't have to look at that Facebook page or post. I can make what I want to look at. And I'm creating everything to be a positive. And I'm happier because of it. I'm more lighthearted.
It's people don't realize that you are the creator.
Right.
Yeah. You are the creator of your life. It's not happening to you. It's responding to you.
Yeah. You're the captain of the ship. You are the captain. Yeah. Steer yourself in the right direction.
Absolutely. What about you, Jenny?
I'm finding that, over this last year, in learning all the things that you've taught us, I don't need as many coping mechanisms. I used to need coping mechanisms like every 10 minutes, I felt like, because I couldn't handle anything. Anything that would come my way, I just felt I can't handle this. I can't, whether it was the kids fighting or, something I had to go do up at school. I just felt so overwhelmed. I got to a point where I just can't handle life. And that feels really bad. You feel out of control. And my hormones were out of whack. So I think that played a big part in feeling overwhelmed very quickly about things. And now I'm like, I just don't feel like I need coping mechanisms. And if I do, I do something healthy instead. I learn more, or I like Lori said, activity. I've started running. I couldn't even walk across the room last year, and now I've started running, and I love it. I really love it. So
it is crazy how resilient your body is, right? Because I was the same way. Once I committed, because I've told you guys a million times, at the first year, I didn't know what I was doing. I would still go to the drive-thru and just order a Big Mac without the burger. I didn't. they'd be like, what?
Mhm.
But once I figured it out, not only did the weight drop off, but my body started healing so fast.
Yeah.
And then I started, I realized that your body does, like, it's constantly turning over. And so when you're giving it the right building blocks, it is incredible how fast you start to feel better. But I think with you, Joanne, too, and you've already talked about this a lot, it's about the one thing that you were really struggling with was boundaries, and that was making you
Mhm.
feel like you couldn't cope. And so now that we've done so much work, you've done so much
Mhm.
work with your boundaries, that has been a game changer for you.
It's a huge game changer because, like I always say, it sounds so ridiculous. Like, what, did I not know anything about life at all? How did I get this far? But I didn't, I just didn't know how to do boundaries. I didn't know it was a thing. And what you said about like having your life live you instead of you being in charge of your life, my husband and I have said that for years. When he's kind of the same personality as me, and we just kind of let everything happen to us instead of taking charge, which in my way back, I never would have thought I would have become that kind of person. But over time, you just sort of let that stuff happen, and we would get to a point where, not even kidding, every weekend we were going to some kind of family obligation because my husband has a huge family. So it was like, this weekend is so and so's birthday, this weekend is a family picnic, this weekend is a whatever. It's every single thing. And finally we were like, our life is living us, we're not living our life. What is going on? And it's the same way with your lifestyle and how you eat. Like, it became like it was happening to me, and I didn't know how to stop it. And once you start to take back that control and set those boundaries and recognize things like self-sabotage, and recognize things like all these things that we talk about, when you recognize them, it's unbelievable the change that takes place in your brain. And then you can shift that and start to take that control back.
Right.
So that's just a big deal, and you kind of get motivated just from that.
And when you have that control back, that feeling of freedom is
Mhm.
really indescribable.
It
It is
It
a
really
is, yeah.
wonderful, wonderful feeling. I mean, it's just the best. It really is. I don't even know how to say it. I can't even put it in words because
Right.
it's so, I felt so controlled and so tied into things. And now I have none of that.
Right.
I can
and
go
it,
to the grocery store and go to that candy aisle in the gas station. I don't even look at it anymore. I don't even look at it.
that backlit candy aisle.
I ain't
I,
watching that.
so right, and as I said many times, it is like a domino effect in the rest of your life, because it starts with your nutrition, because you have got to get your body in order. You
You
can't,
have
because
to.
I hear this all the time, that people are overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, you feel like you can't start a new way of eating. But the problem is, you have to start that new way of eating to get out of overwhelm.
Yep,
That's
you do.
that's a big part of why you're overwhelmed. And so that's why we provide so much support for people
Hmm.
when they're in the program, because it is that first few steps. But then once you take those first few steps, you start to feel so much better right away.
Hmm.
Um, so how have you seen this play out with other women, and how they've overcome their food addiction in the group? Because you're each working with groups of women. So what kind of success stories are you seeing?
Well, I wrote down a few little things and I just went back a couple of weeks. So this is just recent things. So there's more than this, but I'm eating my veggies and I'm loving my life. I'm not focused on food. I'm focused on the fun stuff. I cannot remember feeling this good. I love it. I feel healthier than I've been in years. I love that there is never any negativity or judgment in this group. And there's not going to be, because we know what that feels like, because we judged ourselves. We're not going to judge you.
That's right.
This seems too good to be true, but I'm finding out that it is. I'm gaining back control of my life, and I'm so excited about reaching even more goals,
Oh,
because that's not it. It doesn't just become about the weight anymore. It becomes about other things in life.
that's right. What about you, Joanne?
Well, the thing that happens almost every single day, which I think, you know, is kind of the basis for why you even started this, is to give women, to make them feel empowered and to make them feel like they have control of their lives again. And it's the tiny little things that people, almost every single day, somebody, I passed this up at work today. Somebody brought cupcakes in and I didn't go for it. Or, you know, somebody brought in and refilled the candy jars at work on the counter and I walked right back to my office. Or it's those little tiny things that happen in your daily routine that empower you and make you feel good. And obviously they feel so proud of themselves that they text me and tell me, hey, look, I did this.
Yeah.
It's little tiny things, but those little tiny things are taking you down. And when you can get a grip on those and you feel so empowered by just walking by that candy dish and not sticking your hand in it. And it literally happens every day. Somebody will text me and say, I did this today. I feel so proud of myself.
Right.
And that's what it's all about, because you felt so happy about yourself for so many years.
Those things add up and you start to
Yeah.
believe in yourself again. You start to believe, you don't have to, let me back up and say that you don't have to believe in yourself to start this program, because that's not, it is about believing that this is available to you. That's all. And that's, and that is the thing is that people, if you, I've actually had women say, well, I need to get it together first, and then I'm going to start this. I'm like, but the fact that doesn't make any sense. You're not going to get it together. That's the whole point, is that you need help to get it together. So that's, you don't have to believe in yourself to start doing this. It is believing that there are steps available to make this happen for you. And it is, those things build on one another. And every time you have a small victory, you get more empowered. And that is what really builds up that feeling of empowerment over time, where you feel strong again and you feel like every little thing doesn't have all this control over you. Can you speak to meat replacements like Beyond Meat or Gardein? Is it really good choice, or should I be concerned about tofu? Is that bad for you? So that's like a whole, we'll have to do a whole thing within itself there, but no, tofu is actually really good for you. And I've done, I'll link a post I did on soy so you can read more about that. And also you can have Beyond Meat or Gardein as a treat. It's not a staple in your diet, but it certainly is a yummy treat now and then. So those are okay. But it's really, I mean, this lifestyle is definitely not about deprivation. We all, one of the funnest things about the group is we're all posting our recipes and pictures of delicious food all the time. So it's definitely not about deprivation. It is about balance. It is about learning to live a healthy life in your mind and in your body. And so, yeah. So I just thank you guys so much. I love doing these, and this is such an important topic. We could do more sessions, and I'm sure we will on this. And so for those of you who are watching, feel free to keep commenting or to PM any of us if you would like to talk more, or if you're watching this on the replay, you can comment and we'll always come back and check those. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.